Welcome to Clothesline Theatre. We have been waiting for you to tune in to hear tales of Prince Edward Island, a place of history and some mystery. You may be surprised by the true stories that have been unearthed and brought to life by our radio dramas. We invite you to settle into a comfortable chair and let the voices and sounds trigger your imagination as you hear the following dramatic story.
For numerous decades, England and France fought over, and periodically passed back and forth, the newfound lands of North America. But the final chapter of the drama was written in 1763 with the signing of the Treaty of Paris, which ended the 7 Years' War between the two rivals. France, for the final time, gave their colonial lands in North America, consisting of half a continent, to England. As part of their planning strategy on how to best utilize their newly acquired lands for both settlement and resource extraction, the British undertook a colossal survey. Captain Samuel Holland petitioned for and received the appointment of Surveyor General of the Northern District of North America. He was to start the survey with St. John's Island, later to be named Prince Edward Island in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, due to its importance in respect of the fisheries. The British Army engineer and officer, surveyor, and cartographer, after much preparation, sailed along with his crew from England in the spring of 1764.
The Kansal is under full sail, Captain Holland. If the winds are with us, we should make good time crossing the Atlantic.
You have no concerns, Lieutenant Mowat, about the seaworthiness of the vessel?
She was totally revamped and armed by the Royal Navy to be part of this important survey. She is worthy of any storm, so set your mind at rest, Captain Holland. How does it feel to be returning to the New World and what we are now British lands and colonies?
I was contemplating that very thing standing here at the rails watching England slip from view. It certainly will be different this time, arriving in peace rather than engaging in war. I hope not to witness battle, famine, scurvy, or a host of other illnesses that took the lives of so many when we were at war with France.
You were at the capture of Fort Louisbourg in '58?
Yes, I was a member of the advance party. And of course, I was at the capture of Quebec in 1759.
Is it true you were near General James Wolfe when he was killed in the battlefield at the Plains of Abraham?
Yes, I relive the horror daily. My feelings were overpowered when I found he was mortally wounded. The great general kept fighting with musket wounds to his hand and his abdomen, but he could not withstand the musket ball to his chest. But let us speak of the positives that lie ahead and hope for a smooth crossing.
I could not help but overhear your comments. I quite agree with you, Captain Holland. The dark days are behind us. They are replaced with peace and light as you set out to survey and map the lands of Britain's victory.
Yes, Dr. Bailey, such is the case. I appreciate that such a fine surgeon as you was employed to tend to our medical needs as we embark on this great endeavour.
I am too pleased, for it is history in the making.
I pray that I am worthy of the challenge. It is indeed a great privilege to have secured the opportunity, considering I am a Dutchman of German descent.
King George III could ask for no one better, considering your service to the British Army. It is rumoured that you were chosen not only for your great surveying and cartograph skills, but also for your knowledge of the French people of Quebec.
I very much enjoyed mingling and socialising with the French of Quebec. The women were especially quick to forget that we were at war with them. I am fluent in their language as well as in English, Dutch and German.
No doubt the fact that you are merely in your 30s was also seen as an advantage, considering that we are entering a good deal of wilderness.
I assume that youth and fitness proved beneficial to me in obtaining this post, but I am also a master at my trade, thanks to my studies in Holland.
The Canso passed the Isle of Wight on May 26, 1764. The trip was not all smooth sailing, for wind and fog appeared off Newfoundland and followed the ship as she journeyed onward. On July 11th, off the coast of Cape Breton Island, a thicket fog would have guaranteed the ship's wreckage on the Porto Novo rocks had it not been for musket shots and cries of "Breakers ahead!" from a fishing boat. The Canso traveled with difficulty against the winds to Quebec City to take on supplies and make repairs to the ship.
I love the excitement of Quebec City's port. Here is the list of supplies I wish purchased.
It appears very extensive, Captain. Stoves, kettles, tents, building supplies, fresh and salted beef and pork, bread, butter, peas, rice, and 5 tons of beer. That is a lot of beer, sir.
It will not meet our needs entirely, but it's all there will be room for. Some of the kettles you purchase will be used for the making of spruce beer on St. John's Island to prevent scurvy among us.
But goods were not all that Samuel Holland placed in the boat. He took on 16 additional soldiers, an Acadian guide, and a young woman, Maria Josette Roulet, whom he had met in Quebec around 1761, and their son, John Frederick Holland. She was to be his lifetime companion. The Canso sailed for St. John's Island on September 14th and on October 5th reached North Cape, the western tip of the island where the waters of the Gulf of St. Lawrence and the Northumberland Strait meet and separate. Not wishing to waste a moment of time, Holland put ashore at North Cape a small team to survey the South Shore coastline along the Northumberland Strait down to the former French garrison and settlement of Port-le-Joie, now known as Fort Amherst, where he planned to establish his headquarters. He left the team based on the incorrect estimate from an Acadian guide, or that is how history has told the story for decades.
It is only 18 leagues or 54 miles from the tip to Port-la-Joie.
They can easily cover that distance within a week. Send a week's worth of food with them.
When it took the ship 2 days to reach Fort Amherst, Captain Holland realized he had a crisis on his hands. The survey team could never cover the distance in the week time span and would run out of food. He sent a small vessel with supplies from the fort to search for them, but it was wrecked in a storm. However, the crew managed to get ashore with food and succeeded in finding the survey team that had been lost in the wilderness without food for 3 days. With his men rescued, Holland faced his next dilemma.
Captain Hill, I had hoped to find a substantial and secure stronghold in Fort Amherst where I could do my work, but the place is plainly falling down.
I've done my best as the commanding officer, but our resources are limited and the conditions are difficult. I'm afraid there is no room here for your survey and ship crews. As it is, the barracks are too small for my 100 soldiers. The troops put them up with timber they gathered from a few old French houses nearby. Worse still, we have very little food.
This is most disappointing, and it certainly changes our plans. The survey will have to wait while we build shelter for the coming winter.
Well, the season is getting late. There's no time to spare. There's a frame of an old barn that could be used. You can cover it with boards from some old French houses.
It appears that is our only option. We have some building supplies that were purchased in Quebec City. I wish to build in the woods for shelter, but where it is open enough that I can observe the stars, and it must be near the seashore.
I would recommend a nearby cove. There are Acadians that can be hired to help, and along with my troops and your crew, the job should be completed quickly.
The offering of alcohol, no doubt, will encourage them to work a little faster and also a little harder.
The house is nearly complete, Captain Holland.
I fear it will not be very comfortable.
But Holland found the small house, built in what he called Observation Cove, to prove more satisfactory than expected. Heated with stoves purchased in Quebec and with plenty of firewood, it proved comfortable for its occupants, who consisted of Samuel, Josette, their son, and 6 of the survey crew. The rest of the crew wintered on the ship that had been hauled up on shore and stripped of her rigging. They too were cozier than expected. As 1764 gave way to 1765, the island winter months of January and February proved bitterly cold, with the thermometer reading between minus 10 degrees Celsius and minus 20 degrees Celsius. But Holland pushed on with his survey work, with 4 survey crews working dawn to dusk.
At least with the cold, we will not be bothered with mosquitoes. We will use the ice to our advantage in getting about. It will greatly speed up our surveying. Dr. Bailey, come in out of the weather.
I'm glad I found you, Captain Holland. The surveying team, led by Lieutenant Howdeman, has returned in distress. One of the soldiers has frozen to death. Lieutenant Howdeman himself has suffered severe frostbite, and several other men will lose toes and fingers, although I have done all I can to try and save them.
God forbid.
There is more. Some of the men have snow blindness. When possible, green spectacles must be ordered from England. They are not used to these conditions.
See that they are well tended and well fed. The work will have to go on. For the time being, we will stay indoors by the fire and work on our plans and maps and wait for the temperature to rise.
By mid-February, the weather grew milder, and Holland again sent out 4 survey teams consisting of a lead surveyor, himself being one, 3 soldiers, a seaman, and an Acadian guide. Dogs were purchased from the Acadians to pull each team's toboggan that carried beaver-skin coats, a bearskin, blankets, tents, and food and drink for 8 days. The rising temperatures produced blinding snowstorms for the crews to combat. The season of spring, when it arrived, brought frequent rain and black flies, and the advent of summer brought heat, humidity, and mosquitoes. But never did Holland and his team despair in reaching the end goal of surveying the uncharted island and sounding its surrounding waterways and bays. In October 1765, 1 year from their arrival, the survey was complete.
Men, let us make a toast. We have achieved a fine piece of work in this large map which now lies before us.
A surveyed island with 3 counties, kings, queens, and princes in honor of the royal family of Great Britain.
Ah, yes, each with their own capital named in honor of the royal family. Georgetown, Charlottetown, and Princetown. Charlottetown, in honor of Queen Charlotte, shall be the capital of St. John's Island.
And 67 townships of approximately 20,000 acres each. An amazing undertaking on our part.
A fine job indeed. We have much to be proud of.
By October of 1765, Captain Samuel Holland and his men sent to England the map and plans for St. John's Island, as well as the Magdalen Islands. On October 17th, Samuel Holland and his crew left the island to begin the survey of Cape Breton. 250 years later, in 2015, Samuel Holland's map returned to Prince Edward Island from England for a year-long celebration of the completion of the first stage of the first organized land survey in Canada, or the Northern District of North America. Samuel Holland's Survey of 1765. Cast: Narrator, Stuart Smith. Captain Samuel Holland, Nick Murray. Captain Mowat, David Smith. Dr. Bailey, Kevin Crossland. Crew member, Jake Surrett. Acadian guide, Jules Aucoin. Captain Hill, Jordan Stetson. Lieutenant Haldemund, Jim Dixon. Surveyor Thomas Wright, Wayne Wright. Lieutenant John Pringle, Dan Casely. Musician, Christine Anderson Gallant. Sound Foleys, Krista Bryson, Alexandra Gallant, Nathan Wiley. Recording artist, Peter Gallant. Assistant, Max Gallant. Writer, Marlene Campbell. Researcher and editor, Gene McKay. Production assistant, Sandra Zarvi. This drama has been brought to you by Wyatt Heritage Properties Incorporated through the support of the Building Communities Through Arts and Heritage Program, Department of Canadian Heritage, the Province of Prince Edward Island, and the City of Summerside.